Our stories typically have really big plot twists at the end, and today's story is no different. However, the plot twist today is so unexpected, so
You don't know your worth. All the things I know that you deserve. You don't know your worth.
Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Okay, so I did a video earlier explaining where I came up with the $1.19 rate, I think it was, or $1.17 rate. I was showing people that was written in a BTI report. And then somebody said to me, well, wait, you explained about that one. Where did you say the article was that talks about the 322 rate? So I had to look around, and then I finally found it again. But I'm also going to show you some additional information that I spoke about before in the past when I mentioned that, Iraq at one time was spending anywhere between $1 to $1.5 billion buying their own currency off of the open market. This is back in 2008. It was causing the Iraqi dinar to shoot up in value, believe it or not. So we'll cover that here in just a moment. Before we get started, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. And if you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, head on over to our friends at Money Metals Exchange. The link will be down below in the description. If you are a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy Silver. Yes, it has changed. PIMPY-SILVER. So if you're watching this video and it's an older video, make sure you check on current videos, because the code is going to be changing from time to time from now on. Also, I can be found on other platforms. Everybody knows I have my own website, Pimpy's News Network. Over here, I post videos that I can't get away with over on YouTube. Also, I have a group on Facebook called Pimpy's Investment Chat. Over here, we do talk about gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, as well as foreign currency investments. Come on over here and join us. It's free to do so. You can also come follow me on Twitter, MeWe, YouTube, and Odyssey. The links for all these platforms will be down below in the description. So for whatever reason, if I get removed off of one platform, you could find me on the others. For those of you looking for my address, there it is right here. Feel free to pause the video, go ahead and write it down, and reach out to me. So I've done this video before a while back, and showed the same article, but it's been a little while. And every time I mentioned there was an article that spoke about this rate, people want to see where I got it from, and I forget. It's been a few months, and there's a whole new wave of people within the whole Iraqi dinar arena. So I'm just going to show you where it mentions it. So I showed you where the other rate came from. It was on a BTI report. Now here's where the 322 one comes from. So this is a political veil. This is where the article is that I read. So this particular portion definitely is something to think about. See, the Iraqi dinar has yet to be pegged to the GDP or the GNP for world trade. Well, they're not set up yet on the international stage. That's something that's being worked on. Remember, they're being pushed through the ascension on the World Trade Organization. Plus, there was one other organization I can't remember off the top of my head. So their membership is being pushed through pretty quick. We know there's a lot of steps being taken, like we hear about what's going on with their bank right now, them getting their bank set up so that they're Basel compliant and they're ready to do business on the international scene as far as their banking is concerned. So we know that's coming up. And I've been telling you guys that this Iraqi dinar, it's not going to jump up in one huge amount. They're going to do it in small increments. So as Iraq starts to slowly but surely get reacclimated and dealing internationally, their currency will go up. So we know that the Iraqi dinar is pegged to the US dollar. What we're looking for is them to have such a healthy economy that they are then pegged to their own GDP. When people ask me all the time, do I think the Iraqi dinar is a scam? I said, no, it's a currency. People use that currency to scam other individuals. That's what's happening. You see right here, it says a federal grand jury indicted 3 men from Ohio for their roles in an operation of a $23 million in fraud scheme involving the sale of Iraqi dinar currency and 2 non-existent hedge funds. It said investors lost 23.8 million from dinar sales, according to the indictment. Now, I did look up this case and I read what was going on. They claimed to have had insider information. They had intel that told them how much the rate was going to be and on what day it was going to revalue. That's what they were telling people. And now there's some of them still out there on YouTube claiming that they know what the rate's going to be or approximately when it's going to happen. And so far, all the predictions I've ever heard them make has all been wrong. So whoever their intel is, they need to get new intel people because their current intel sucks. Okay, just saying. So back in 2004, President Bush put a law into effect allowing anyone to invest in the Iraqi currency known as the dinars. When the U.S. went to war with Iraq, the Iraq dinar, their currency, was taken off the World Monetary Exchange until their sovereignty would be given back to the Iraqis. So we have what's called the World Reserve Monetary Exchange. When you get to it, there's no other pages but this one. So I don't know what the hell's going on here. This is all it has. So the first thing I noticed is that this is an Ohio one. So I'm guessing that this webpage maybe was being used as part of that scam because there is no World Monetary Exchange. There's a World Reserve Monetary Exchange for coin collectors. So either I'm just not looking it up right, but I cannot find a World Monetary Exchange. The order on foreign investments in Iraq includes 5 elements: privatization of state-owned enterprises, 100% foreign ownership of businesses in all sectors except oil and minerals extractions, banks and insurance companies. The later 2 are addressed in a separate order. Natural treatment of foreign firms, unrestricted tax-free remittance, I wonder if that's tax-free, of all funds associated with the investment, including but not limited to profits and a 40-year ownership license, which have the option of being renewed. So you can see right here, it says Presidential Order 13303 allows U.S. citizens to invest in the new Iraq. Under Executive Order 13303, coupled with the Coalition Provisional Authority Order 39, a U.S. citizen has the same rights to invest as an Iraqi citizen. If you go to Executive Order 13303, there's no words in there specifically that say you can invest in the currency. If you go to CPA 39, it does talk more details about investing there. So this is Executive Order 13303. You go through here. It doesn't say anything about being able to invest in the Iraqi dinar. It does talk about you being able to go invest in the businesses over there, which is different. This is the CPA number 39. And on here, it's a lot more specific about what you can invest into. So it goes through here and talks about allowing foreign investors to invest in Iraq. But let's get down here because it's a lot more specific. And then it tells you what the purpose of this is. The order promotes and safeguards the general welfare and interests of the Iraqi people by promoting foreign investments through the protection of the rights and properties of foreign investors in Iraq and the regulation through transparent processes of matters relating to foreign investment in Iraq. The order specifies the terms and procedures for making foreign investments and is intended to attract new foreign investments to Iraq. Now, these are the different sections in here. You can see right here, it says a foreign investor shall be entitled to make foreign investments in Iraq on terms no less favorable than those applicable to an Iraqi investor or citizen, unless otherwise provided herein. The amount of foreign participation in the newly formed or existing business entities in Iraq should not be limited unless otherwise expressly provided herein. A foreign investor may open trade representation office and branches in Iraq. Such offices and branches shall be registered with the Iraqi Register of Companies. Section 6 right here says, foreign investors may take place with respect to all economic sectors in Iraq, except that foreign direct or indirect ownership of the natural resource sector involved in primary extractions and initial processing remains prohibited. In addition, this order does not apply to banks and insurance companies. So in other words, none of their natural resources. Nothing that you can extract. Implementing, it says a foreign investor may implement foreign investment using, amongst other things, freely convertible currency or Iraq legal tender in the following forms. establishing a wholly foreign-owned business entity in Iraq, including as a subsidiary of foreign investors, establishing a business entity, establishing a branch or office, directly acquiring an investment. Technically, I guess it would fall right here in this category, because if you keep going, it says a foreign investor shall be authorized to possess, use, or dispose of its investments, manage or participate in managing the business, transfer its rights and obligations to other persons in accordance with the law, transfer abroad without delay all funds associated with the foreign investment, including shares or profits and dividends, proceeds from the sales or other disposition of its foreign investment or a portion thereof, interest, royalty payments, management fees, and other fee payments made under a contract, other transfers approved by the Ministry of Trade, exercise any other authority conferred upon its law. So, if anything, this might be it, but you can see it doesn't specifically say you can invest in their currency. So if you come down here, it talks about real estate, insurance, dispute settlements, dissolution of entities. So even with the CPA 39, it doesn't specifically mention investing in the currencies. I guess you kind of got to read in the gray area if you get my drift. So these are the summaries of the different things I just read. So it goes on to say the U.S. government is the largest holder of the Iraqi dinar outside of Iraq. It says the U.S. Treasury does not officially list the Iraqi dinar as part of the currency forex reserves. Exactly how many dinars were traded is not mentioned, but it does make reference to billions of U.S. dollars traded to Iraq. Experts speculate the U.S. government received nearly 4 trillion Iraqi dinars at the exchange rate of 4,000 dinars for every dollar. If this is even close to true, and the UN allows Iraq to revalue their currency up to $1 US, so they're talking about a 1-for-1 right there, the US government would stand a profit in the trillions, as would anyone who has speculated on the dinar over the years. It says, remember, Iraq does not have to pump its oil out of the ground to receive present-day wealth for it. They can simply leave the oil in the ground and write promissory notes, aka derivatives, against the unpumped asset. Like the US, they need only to crank up the digital fractional printing press, which is irrespective of the physical supply, MO of the IQD, which is the MO money report. I know there's a company that you could buy stock in over in Saudi Arabia. They allow you to invest in oil that has not been pumped out of the ground yet. So this part is true. It said, remember the Bush administration statement about the war will pay for itself. It came from Paul Wolfowitz. I can't find any proof that Paul said that, but I did find proof that Donald Rumsfeld, they call him Rummy, he said that. But it's not like I was looking really hard. I just did a quick search. It says right here, there's a lot of money to pay for this that doesn't have to be U.S. taxpayers' money, and it starts with the assets of the Iraqi people. I love how they offer up the assets of the Iraqi people. We're talking about a country that can really finance its own reconstruction, and relatively soon. So here's where it starts getting interesting. Iraq announced that they removed 70% of the money supply. And I told people about this. Somebody said, no, they didn't. Pimpy's lying. Okay, whatever. Said during the 2008 oil windfall to Iraq, in 2008, the central bank's aggressive policy spent $1 to $1.5 billion every month in oil revenues to buy physical Iraqi dinar supply on the open market. This is from Saleh. This is the main lever for controlling consumer price inflation. You can see right here, it says, remember though, the physical supply has been reduced. The derivative circulation has been increased by fractional banking, aka derivatives, which increases the M2 report. The M2 is not the total supply of physical IQD. Well, let's look into this. So what are the MO, M1, M2, and M3 reports? We know an article said the M2 report increased because of the derivatives, so we don't care about the M2. What we are looking for is the MO report. The smallest and most liquid measure, the MO, is strictly currency in circulation and money being kept by banks and reserves. Hence, MO is often referred to as the monetary base. How much currency is in circulation? Here is the MO report right here. This is as of November 2022. The money supply ammo in Iraq increased to 125,339 IQDs. That's in the billions. So what does that really come out to? What are we talking about? $129 trillion is what it is. So 129,339 billion Iraqi dinars are out there. So you can see they pretty much update the reports. It looks like every 4 months. The last one was done in November. This is it right here. So previously it was here, and now it's here. Again, you can see right here it says Iraq money supply MO is the most liquid measures of the money supply, including coins and notes in circulation and other assets that are easily converted into cash. So the MO is not just paper notes and coins, but it says other assets that can easily convert into cash. And I'm going to go out on a limb and make the assumption that includes the gold reserves. So if that's the case, you just take a look at what the overall gold reserves are, whatever the current rate is, and deduct it from this amount, might give you more of a clear picture. So this article is from 2008, so keep that in mind. It says another important factor buoying Mr. Maliki has been the sharp rise in oil prices, which, among other things, has allowed Iraq's central bank to buy back its currency at a feverish pace, forcing the value of the Iraqi dinar higher and limiting increases in consumer prices driven by higher food costs. Inflation stood last month at the rate of 16%, up from 11% in January. Again, that's 2008. But that rate might be a good deal higher without the central bank's aggressive policies. The bank spends $1 to $1.5 billion every month in oil revenues to buy Iraqi dinars on the open market. This is the main lever for controlling consumer prices, said Mr. Kazman, who noted that the value of the dinar had risen about 20% against the dollar. An oil price crash, he added, would be a disaster. They didn't have an oil crash. He was saying it could have been. So they were using $1 to $1.5 billion every month buying back their currency off of the open market. Go to the MO report, put it in here from the beginning to 2008, which is when the article was. So you don't get confused. This is being reported in the billions. This is being reported in the millions. So in 2008, we were looking at 17,877,000,000,000 dinars in circulation. See right here? So minus 70%, it brings it down to 5 trillion dinars. That's back in 2008. Once I refresh it, this is where we are now today. So you still think you're getting a $3.22 rate increase? When I first heard they removed 70% of the Iraqi currency off the open market, to me that was a huge move. I felt good. I was saying that reduced the amount in circulation. They can account for the money, and they can go ahead and control the exchange rate and make it where it was before. Let's say they had 5 trillion dinars in circulation, and they went ahead and did a 3-to-1, $3 for every 1 Iraqi dinar. Then you're looking at the need of 50 trillion US to buy back all 5 trillion of the dinars that were out there in circulation. Of course, I'm just oversimplifying just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So if it was 3-to-1 and all 5 trillion of the Iraqi dinars happen to be out in the hands of speculators, I'm just oversimplifying, and every single speculator brought back all 5 trillion, that means that Iraq would have needed 15 trillion just to buy back all their own currency with US dollars. So let's see how long that would have took. So in 2022, Iraq did $115.5 billion in oil sales for the whole year. So there's your 15 trillion US dollars that Iraq would have needed to buy back all 5 trillion of those dinars at an exchange rate of $3 US to every 1 dinar. Last year they did 115.5 billion in oil sales. So let's just say, for the sake of keeping this simple, every year Iraq did $115.5 billion in oil sales every year. So how long would it take for them to pay off this 15 trillion? So divide 15 trillion. There it is, $115.5 billion divided into 15 trillion. it would take Iraq approximately 130 years to pay off all the money they would need to buy back their currency at an exchange rate of 3-to-1. Now, do you understand what we're talking about? So we know for a period of time, it doesn't say how long though. All I heard is that they did destroy 70% of their currency back then. And people can say, no, I never heard of that. Well, I'm showing you right there. There's an article. It's telling you. They spent $1 to $1.5 billion every month in oil revenues to buy back dinars off the open market. This caused the Iraqi dinar to increase in value against the US dollar by 20%. That's the exchange rate. So before you get all overly excited about what this means, let's take a look at a 20% increase. We know right now the exchange rate for the Iraqi dinar is 1,300 dinars for every $1. I'm just going to use the current rate just to make a point. So the exchange rate had increased by 20%. That would have brought the Iraqi dinar's exchange rate from $1,300 down to 1,040 dinars for every dollar. So 20% sounds large. Remember the true value of the Iraqi dinar. It's one of the cheapest currencies out there at the moment. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll take a 20% increase in Iraqi dinar value against the US dollar. Heck yeah, I'll take that exchange rate. What I want to know is, when did they start buying them off the open market? How long did it take? How fast did it take the exchange rate to go up? That's what I want to know. Because if it was something that happened over a few months and it increased in value by 20% in just a few months, and they removed 70% of their dinar off the open market back then that's a great thing. They could still do that today, technically, if they wanted to. So I hope that simplifies everything and the reality of what we're dealing with. So I was looking at the information from 2008, also trying to make a comparison to where we are today. Back in 2008, if they took 70% of their money supply off the open market, that's phenomenal. That's what you want. That left very little Iraqi dinar out there in circulation. But we're not there. Now it's at what, 129 trillion? So what are we talking about here? You know, it's almost 25 times more higher where it was in 2008. So before you get all doom and gloom, take other things into consideration. We know that ISIS took, 800 million Iraqi dinars. They stole it, and then they found a big chunk of it, actually almost all of it, underneath a bank that was burnt down. That was one of their stashes of the Iraqi dinar. So they were able to recover most all of that currency, but it was destroyed because the currency was no longer any good. We know there was a huge flood that hit Iraq and destroyed all the dinars that were in the bank at the time, and I don't know how many that was. Not to mention all the natural wear and tear that happens with the currencies throughout time. So there's all kinds of factors you got to take into consideration about what's actually out there in circulation. The IMO reports tell us 129 trillion Iraqi dinars. Then everybody talks about this when Hillary Clinton was encouraging people to invest in Iraq.
And that Iraq has in many ways been a leader in demonstrating to believe and to see that democracy delivers. And this is clearly not a job for government alone. Businesses like those represented here at this table create jobs, provide livelihoods, increase standards of living, give hope to individuals and their families. And what government should do, whether it's in the United States or in Iraq, is to be a good partner, to help create the conditions for investment and growth that will be broadly spread and create a ladder of economic opportunity for those willing to work hard to acquire the education and skills required in the modern world. Now, we are entering a new phase in our relationship with Iraq, and we are very committed to making a major civilian commitment to Iraq's future. We'll be opening, as you know, and running consulates in Erbil and Basra. According to the IMF, Iraq is projected to grow faster than China in the next 2 years. But let me repeat that, because when I read it, I said, okay, are you sure? Because we always think of China as being the juggernaut. But no, indeed, Iraq is projected to grow faster than China. Now, nothing is set in stone. The decisions made by the government, made by businesses, could undo that prediction. And so in 5 years, we'd look back and say, well, why didn't it happen? But Iraq has one of the largest customer bases in the entire Arab world. It has one of the world's largest supplies of oil, and it has one of the best educated workforces in the region. Today, Turkish, Chinese, French, Jordanian, Iranian companies are lining up to do business. But very honestly, we see too few American companies alongside our soldiers and our diplomats. Iraqis are looking to rebuild every sector of their economy, not only their oil sector, but agribusiness, transportation, housing, banking, and many others. And we want to see Iraq have a strong democracy and a growing economy that provides stability and prosperity for the Iraqi people. And we need to work to make sure that the investments are there that will help Iraq chart that kind of future.
So this came from June of 2013. Iraq is ready for prime time, but as usual, something came along and interfered with it. And what was that? ISIS. That's what came. But we can say now, 10 years later, that Iraq is once again in that same position, barring any issues from terrorist groups or wars or anything else. They're right back on track. So you can see right here, it says United Nations released Iraq from all sanctions to be restored to pre-1990 international standards. That's not the truth. When you come over here to United Nations of Iraq's program, you can see right here, May 21 of 1990, OIP Executive Director presents the Security General's 180-day report on Phase 5 to the Secretary Council. He emphasizes that the program cannot and was never meant to meet all humanitarian needs of the Iraqi people, nor can it restore Iraq's economic and social infrastructure to pre-1990 levels. It says in here, apparently, and even though the remaining $11 billion compensation is still under Chapter 7, that was a while back, but we know just last year that the remaining portions of Chapter 7 were lifted, so they're no longer under Chapter 7. We also know that they paid off the remaining balance to Kuwait. They no longer owe Kuwait any more money, allowing them to keep somewhere around $2.5 billion of money every month. So it says on here, it says yesterday the United Nations Security Council made this very important statement. The United Nations Council would welcome the draft resolution preamble part, aka preparatory statement, both Iraq and Kuwait efforts to advance regional stability and the positive steps that have been taken by the government of Iraq to fulfill Resolution 833 of 1993 related to the border between the two neighboring countries. The most tangible written statement that the importance of the IQD to be restored to its pre-1990 international standings to date has been made by the United Nations Secretary Council on June 26 of 2013. It says the United Nations Security Council would recognize that the situation existing now in Iraq is significantly different from when Saddam regime invaded Kuwait in August of 1990, and the importance of the Iraqi achieving international standing equal to that which it held prior to the date. Then the IQD was at 322 for every $1 US. And this is worded wrong, but it was for every one Iraqi dinar, you got $3.22 US dollars. That was the rate back then. It says some things being restored back to the pre-1990, yes, but it doesn't mention anything in there about the IQD, not that I can find. There's another place I would check, not right now, but a little bit later on. This is where the 322 rate comes from. I was reading this and all I said in the video is that the rate prior to the 1990 invasion was at 322. And so it should have been reinstated because Iraq hadn't done anything to lower its value, which isn't true because they were invaded, they had wars, their infrastructure was totally destroyed. Unlike Kuwait, Kuwait didn't have to go through all that. So it's a little bit different, but that's where the 322 rate comes from. And I made arguments for it over and over, and I try to find every reason to justify that exchange rate, but I just couldn't. 129 trillion dinars are out there in circulation. What we need to know is how much currency was destroyed. We know 70%, that was back in 2008. Have they destroyed more? How much of it is accounted for? How much of it is in the hands of speculators? Because all that is going to make a difference. With the currency being stolen by corrupt politicians and a terrorist, there's no way they're going to revalue the current currency to this rate. Most likely when the time comes and they're really right back on track, you're going to see them redenominate the currency and it's going to go up in increments. Do I think it can get to the $3.22 rate? Of course I do. If Iraq does whatever it needs to, I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. I'm saying it's possible to get to the 322 rate. They just have to make sure to stop doing all the bad things that keep setting them back. Anyways, I wanted to explain where the 322 rate comes from, and that's where it comes from. That's it for now. You guys let me know what you think down below in the comments. Can Iraq get back to the 322 rate? And I'll check you out later. I'm out.